Hello, my name is Gary. I'm a 56-year-old executive who suffered a major farm accident at the age of 12, where I experienced severe head and back trauma. Today I look forward to telling you the story of my transformation from disability to wellness. For 44 years I had suffered from increasing headaches and back pain. The medical community was unable to help me. Recently I visited the Turner Wellness and Brain Care Center and experienced what some might call a miracle. After my first adjustments, I was 99% headache-free. After my second session with Dr. Turner, I was virtually headache-free and TMJ-free. I experienced an unbelievable improvement in overall wellness. Let's listen in as Dr. Turner shares his assessment of my injuries.
So you were having the headaches all on the front side of the head here. So what had happened is you'd been hit in the head somehow. So what this did was it pushed it back. So that'll decrease the space between the brain and the skull. You have a little bit of space between the brain and the skull called the arachnoid space. If the bones in the skull get out of place, what it's going to do is make that space smaller. So that decreases the cerebral spinal fluid, and it also decreases the blood supply to that part. So that when you get under stress or the atmospheric pressure changes, that puts more pressure on the body, so the blood has to be pumped a little harder, and that's what causes the pounding type headaches in there. Plus, that part of the brain is starved for nutrition. It doesn't get the amount of oxygen that it needs, and it doesn't get the blood supply or the cerebral spinal fluid. So where you were hit in the front, jammed it here, jammed it in the sphenoid, and pushed back on the zygomatic a little bit too. That's why you were getting some of that pain coming around into the side of the face. There were other things happening right underneath here. Is where your short-term memory is. Right over here on this side, this is Broca's area. This is the area of the brain that's responsible for speech. So this is part of where you had pressure. I have an indent right in here. The back part of the skull, that's the sleep center. So that would be your disturbed sleep. This is the sphenoid that goes in behind the eyes. This is the blood supply for the front of the head. This is where the pituitary gland sits, so this is responsible for hormones. You can see under here, this hole here, that is for the muscles of the eyes. So when the sphenoid gets out of place, it can affect all of these things. Now when we're dealing with the special needs kids and the big kids that are having trouble with speech, it's going to be right over here. When the sphenoid goes to the right, they have difficulty with reading. When it goes to the left, they have difficulty with math. And when it impinges on the speech center here, that can affect their ability to use language. Now this is where you have a misalignment in the bone. What happens is it decreases that space, so that decreases the cerebrospinal fluid and the blood supply, and it can actually put direct pressure right on the brain. See how this is even across here, and that part is pushed down in? Now here we have an indent in the hard part of the bone, which is part of what you had on the temple. So that interferes with the blood supply. See the difference between here and here? It interferes with the cerebral spinal fluid and can actually put pressure on the brain. This chart that we've done here, the cranial mapping chart, shows that this part of the brain controls a particular function. So when we're examining the skull, we can tell what functions are going to be interfered with. So how long have you had these headaches?
44 years.
Every day?
It got worse and worse. University was in absolute rough shape. Went to my MD and he said, "You're as fit as a paratrooper, what do you want me to do?"
Get rid of the headaches.
Yes, and then I went to a dentist and I spent about $10,000 on TMJ and occlusal adjustments. And then they gave up on me.
And how many adjustments did it take for us to turn things around for you?
You did it in the first one last week.
Want to relax? That's it. There we go. Okay. And a bit more on this side. Okay, that's the TMJ that was stuck in there. Now, last week you had all these muscle spasms.
I have none this week.
Around it?
Or very few.
I can find them.
I know you can. I can feel you finding them.
But they're very deep now.
They used to be the size of alley cats.
Yep. So that has dissipated very nicely. Okay, now this is the mark. Can you see the groove here? Can you see that? Depends the light there. Can you see the groove there?
Yep.
That's where I was hit with the log. So when we did that last week, we were able to pull some of that out. So what that does is put an actual indent in the skull, which is going to interfere with that blood supply and cerebrospinal fluid and actually put pressure on the front of the brain. Now the front of the brain, this is your emotional centers, your decision making, organization abilities, personalities. This is where, with some of the autistic kids that we do, this is the persistence of a single thought or a single action. Yeah, well, there was a ridge there that I was pushing on, and as it moved back into place with the perspiration, I actually just like that. Yeah, when it gets smooth, there's nothing to hang on to, and it slips off. But this has been like this for 44 years.
That's correct.
So it's going to have a tendency to come back. So this is why we need the repeated visits over a long period of time. Now, with being hit here, the frontal bone has been pushed back. This is where the short-term memory is being affected. So it doesn't take long to do the adjustments, 4 or 5 seconds. Okay, now the other one that's behind the frontal bone is that sphenoid. The one I showed you, that's the one that affects speech, which is right here. So what I just moved here was the sphenoid, and I pushed it over to the side so you can feel it move all in behind the eyes. So that's affecting the hormones, the blood supply for the front of the head, eyesight, and the muscles for the eyes, plus all of the nerves for the face. Now we have some indents in the back of the head. This is, you see on the chart there, you see the red part at the back. That's the visual center. This is cerebellum, which is your fine muscle coordination, and right above it, in here is where the sleep center is. So his indent runs from the sleep center down into the visual center.
In conclusion, months later, I still remain headache-free, TMJ-free, my vision is improved. In fact, my optometrist can actually measure an improvement in my vision. My overall wellness has never been better, thanks to Dr. Roger Turner of the Turner Wellness and Brain Care Center.